Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Orange Sutra again. The philosophical midwifery text. So in the philosophical midwifery book, last time we learnt about the nature of the pathologos and the nature of philosophical midwifery. There were some important points. It is a monad-like thing, monad-like. Now we had to talk a little bit about a monad. What's a monad? It's a kind of oneness, often sits above a triad. We talked about its linkages to other beliefs. We asked the question, is pathologos a fundamental false belief about ourself and reality that's unsuspected? Is it a one or a many? Seems to be both. We seem to have pathologos problems, or each pathologos was in the text. And they each have their unique origins. So we might develop many different pathologos, but we talked about it coming together as a monad. The pathologos functions as a monad. And we talked about last time how even though we have our own individual pathologos, it shares the same form, but because it's a belief, so it's a form made of words, we call it a morphology. That was a fancy word we learned last time. We discover it by asking certain kinds of questions. Designed to reveal that form, right, to find both the form of the pathologos and its conditions, the particular conditions that gave birth to our pathologos, which is learned, not taught. We come to the conclusion, false conclusion about self and reality, ourself and reality. In philosophy, we can recognize that as the first and second hypothesis. Reality being, ultimately, well, there are levels of reality, of course, but ultimate reality is what we seek in philosophy as being, and beyond that is the self. So it's curious that the pathologos is a fundamental false belief about self and reality, considering our goal as human beings is to understand and experience the self and the reality. So pretty cool. We talked about how the conditions, the early scenes, are specifically structured, designed to create the certain conclusions that we would come to make certain that we would form those conclusions and make them indubitable. Now, indubitable was a funny word that I forgot. Indubitable. Indubitable, which means unquestionable, undoubtable. So it's a bit of fun. The conditions from our early life were designed to make certain that we would come to a certain false conclusion and not doubt that conclusion and not question that conclusion about ourself and reality. Okay. We talked about how that there are many scenes that are dramatic and they fit together within a drama. We talked about how there is an action, a certain intellectual content or logos. So there's an action or a logos and a state of mind. That is the triad. So there's an activity happening. There are some logos happening, some words. And these come together to affect our state of mind. So the effect of the drama from the early scenes is our state of mind. That's the effect we feel. So while we have an unsuspected false belief about ourselves, we don't know what our pathologos is, but we do feel the effect. We feel the state of mind. The state of mind is our anchor. That's what we feel day to day when we have our problems, but it's also our anchor back through to our past scene. To figure out, because we need to find that. We need to follow the questions, so we need to learn some questions to ask that will allow us to trace the history of a certain negative state of mind that is destructive. It's cyclical in nature. It plays itself out repeatedly. But also, through our understanding, we can anticipate and understand why they have such intensity at some times and others not. So there'll be ups and downs to do with the intensity of the state of mind that manifests or causes our problems. Okay, cool. Right, so we need to see how there is a network, an interrelated network of problems and individual pathologos that create the monad pathologos that are like gears that fit together. Right, so the interconnection of our pathologos problems, how they fit together into a unity, how they interrelate into a network, the structure of our pathologos, the structure of the network can be charted, the interconnections established and made clear, the origins can be determined, and its solution can be tested in analogical situations. That's what we need to do. We need to see how there are many problems that we have in our lives, or individual pathologos, you could say, how they actually fit together and help each other. So there's a kind of, I guess you might even say, beautiful structure, maybe, how they fit together into a unity. We need to discover this, chart it back, find the origins of these individual pathologos, and also come to a solution. Once we come to a solution, we have to test it out in situations that are like that origin scene, whether we like it or not. And hopefully we do like it because it's going to be useful. We will find ourselves in similar situations in our everyday life, which will be an opportunity for us to test our new conclusions, test our solutions. Okay, each individual pathologos is linked to others in a network of beliefs. Beliefs is the cause here. Interesting if you are reading along with the Meno on this channel. Socrates and Meno have come to a discovery that a fundamental cause to problems is beliefs, and they need to go to get out of those sorts of problems. People can be led to believe things that are bad are actually in their benefit. So people who we think are our enemies or are bad or deserve punishments because they seek bad things are actually just people who have been conned. So Meno's original definition in the Meno about what is virtue, harming the bad people, your enemies, falls away. It's not good to help your friends and harm your enemies. That's bullshit, because people who seek bad things only do so because they have been led to believe. And those who move out of belief into their own recognition and understanding will find that bad things actually do not benefit you. So, and we all seek the good. So, the conditions for division and hostility and violence and disconnection and capitalism and fascism and the military-industrial complex, all of those things based on violence and division fall away very quickly when we realize we all seek the same good. the nature of reality and the self. Our problems are caused by beliefs, being led to believe. Now, in the Meno, they don't get into, well, they talk about Meno's personal beliefs from his teacher, supported by his family and his city and his lover, but they don't get into these, a specific kind of problem, a specific kind of false belief about self and reality we are calling the pathologos. So we need to be doing the Meno and this book together to get a full picture of what causes our problems. Blocks to understanding and our own recognition. If you recognize something and understand it for yourself, you don't have to believe anyone. You're free. Now, pathologos can get in the way of the development of that. Don't do philosophy. Don't enjoy the Awakening Philosophy channel and reading. Do something else and maintain. You're only allowed to reach lesser goals, not develop an understanding and your own seeing that might challenge the fundamental pathologos false beliefs about reality. Okay, so we need to be doing this to remove those blocks as we go. Last time we talked about the courage and the other virtues needed to stay in the game, even though it might feel like we can't do it because we haven't yet removed those false beliefs that make us feel like we are incapable. We are not incapable. It feels like it is until we remove those doubts and false beliefs. So until then, we need courage, temperance, to do what's just, to develop a wisdom and understanding of the logos and dialectic. We need the four virtues as we go until it's automatic, until it's natural, until we're free. So, good for us. So the mashing together of gears, of teeth of meshing gears, is the network of beliefs. So we need to see how our individual pathologos relate to one another, the mutual connections, the successive instances is a development of our pathologos. So, oh, hello, welcome, Maximus. There is a kind of, so the result is the message gains a definitiveness. The message is an underlying false belief, the specific content of the pathologos. So, as we play specific instances out on our problem, we are refining our pathologos. There is a kind of bridge of meaning between these successive refinements of the pathologos that expresses itself throughout the structure of false beliefs, the development of the pathologos. Bridge of meaning. So we are living a meaningful life. There's a bridge of meaning through the expression, the successive refinements of the pathologos that express itself throughout this structure of false beliefs. So our lives, we are playing out our pathologos. I don't know, Maximus. We can see. Responding to chat there. Our lives are playing out a... Right, so what we're talking about here, the question in chat is, do you believe in God? What we are looking at here is what we've been talking about today is the movement from belief, because if you believe somebody else, you can be conned or tricked. So we want to move from belief to understanding for ourselves. So we're not really interested in belief. In this particular series on philosophical midwifery, as we can see in the top corner, we're interested in identifying, thumbs up, certain kinds of beliefs that cause our problems. And as we're reflecting from last time, we saw that our lives, thumbs up, are playing out instances of problems over and over that are the expression of our pathologos. Pathologos means sick belief, a fundamental sick belief about reality, or you might call that God if you like, mind itself, reality itself, and ourselves, which is greater even than God, because even God has a selfhood. And even God has qualities like immortality and power and the ability to create. So even those things must have a cause. That's the self. So that's what we're after in philosophy, the movement from image thinking and belief into understanding about reality and the self, the divine and the self. And we need to verify that in direct experience. That's the movement from understanding to nous. And if you understand something and you've experienced it, you don't have to believe in anyone. Doesn't matter how fancy their books are or how big their hat is, you can understand and experience it for yourself. Now, of course, in philosophy, we can go even beyond that, beyond understanding and nous to the self. A level or a state of being beyond even understanding and experience. So we're way past belief at that point. So that's the quest of philosophy that we're on. Everyone is on it, by the way. The question is, how much integrity do you want to have in playing the game you're in anyway? That's what we've been reading in the Meno. We all seek what we think is good, but how many of us do the work to actually discover the good properly, using those cognitive functions we've been talking about, understanding, nous, and that which is beyond? Or how many people are content to stay in their beliefs, prejudices, ignorance, cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, family beliefs, and specifically pathologos beliefs? These are the big ones. The pathologos beliefs, pathologos, sick logos, are the ones that cause our problems. In the chat, if everything has a cause, then there is no God, or at least it's harder to believe it is. Well, if everything has a cause, then you can create a cause of the physical world. Like there are principles of the physical world that we have to account for. That's the realm of metaphysics. That's philosophy. Specifically, philosophy is not about the physical world. Philosophy is specifically about the realm of being. And you can call that God if you wish, because it's divine, it's eternal, it's immortal. It's called the demiurgos, which means the creator God. There has to be something to create this physical world and its physical principles, like understanding, the paradigm for understanding itself. But of course, this movement from physical experiences of things, like we see many beautiful things, adjectives, beauty as an adjective to describe that thing and that thing. Philosophy is the movement from adjectives to causes or to nouns. What is beauty itself? In Greek, they say self-beauty. That's the subject of our understanding in philosophy. Now, it's very different than the way they teach it at school. It was very different to the way they taught it at school, even in Socrates' time. Adjective is a describing word. So if you can say, this is a heavy pen. Heavy is an adjective. You might say, this is a handsome philosopher. Handsome is an adjective. The object is the noun. Philosopher is the noun. So, in our physical world, as human beings, we forget. We forget whatever experiences we've had of the realm of being, which doesn't change. That's why we call it being. And we forget as babies, and we learn about this physical world, which we also call the world of becoming, because everything is becoming. It's growing or it's decaying. It's becoming old or, well, yeah, it's becoming in its growth, or it's becoming dead. Everything in this physical world is in change. But the doorway into philosophy is a kind of curiosity and a desire to understand causes, because we see adjectives like beauty, a beautiful person, a beautiful puppy, a beautiful painting. Philosophy is asking the question, hang on a second, what's the cause of these adjectives? What's the cause of these descriptions? Because if there's beauty over there, and beauty over there, and beauty over there, that means there has to be some higher principle that allows beauty to be all over the physical world. So beauty itself as a thing, as a noun, has to be before physical. That's called metaphysics. Meta before, physics before the physical world. So that's the subject of philosophy. How do we understand, not believe, the realm of being? And that's only the first stage. After we understand it, and we can separate our consciousness from our physical senses. The physical senses see physical things, but we're interested in the metaphysical thing. So we need to turn our attention away from our physical senses to another sense we have called ousia, sometimes called the third eye, or the eye of the soul. That is the sense that we can perceive being through, because it's the same nature as being. Ousia is the Greek word, and we have to use the word ousia because we don't have an English word for it. Thumbs up for ousia. So that's what philosophy is. And when we learn philosophy, we have to also contrast it with what philosophy is not. After Socrates, the Roman or Latin culture killed the Greek culture, shut down the academy where we learnt about Socrates, burnt the libraries, and they tried to say, you can't understand this, and if you try and read the texts yourselves in order to understand for yourself, we will murder you. That began a period called the Dark Ages. This is the tradition we are in now. So if you learn philosophy on YouTube or at universities, you learn the Latin tradition. We call this the modern European tradition. And they don't look at the realm of being. In fact, they couldn't, because the Latin tradition didn't have a word for the. They couldn't find the beauty. They couldn't find the noun. They could only look at adjectives. Thumbs up. So that's what we have to realize. We have to reawaken the true understanding of philosophy. Because what we learn as philosophy, Socrates calls philodoxia, the love of opinions. Why? You can only have opinions if you're only looking through your physical senses. Why? Because truth and understanding apply to the realm of being. So that's what we do in philosophy. And of course, once we reach the realm of being, we ask the same questions. Oh my God, we're in the realm of being. Literally, oh my God. This is God. This is the divine. This is me as well. It's my own mind. Oh my goodness. Hopefully, we have been practicing philosophy in our life while we're in our physical form. We've been practicing this question about causes so that when we encounter the brilliant light of pure being, which is sometimes described as bliss, we have been trained enough to ask a question, what the heck is the cause even of this? So we're not so overwhelmed by the experience that we forget to ask our question. That's the transition from the world of being to something we call the self. Now, all of these is, Yes, the dialectic is absolutely crucial in chat. The dialectic is our method. That's the method we employ. Dialectic is about being. Dialectic is the structure of understanding. Now, dialectic we perfect. We don't figure it out all at once. That's why we read the texts. We'll learn about virtue in the Meno, in the Phaedo, in the Republic. And then every time we read something new, we create a new dialectic. And what's fantastic about the dialectic, once you go through the structure of the dialectic, you've come to a new understanding about your subject, which means you've got more material to do another dialectic. So every conversation we have, hopefully we try and structure it with the dialectic. That's how Socrates talks to himself and his friends. Can you give an example of the use of dialectic in an opinion? Well, dialectic isn't about opinions. That's why we read Socrates, because he has understanding and experience of the realm of being and the self. So he gives us little bits and pieces of information that we ourselves structure to develop understanding. So here's the structure of the dialectic. Let's do it. Here we go. So the dialectic is on something that is, let's say, if beauty. So let's say we're reading about beauty in the symposium. So we say if beauty. If beauty is. Now is means exists, which means the realm of being. So you know already that dialectic has to be about the metaphysics, because that's what exists means. So if beauty is. Now you also have to have another page open if beauty does not exist. If beauty is only a physical thing. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is just a physical experience. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion or an opinion or something like that. Opinion would be this category here. So you would get some understanding from the text. That would be your definition of beauty itself. So that's self in relation to itself. What can you say about the subject itself? Self to self. So there are two ways of understanding the four categories. You can use the word S for self and O for other, or you can use DDAS, which is actually DDDAS. Right, so we give a definition. Yes, so we have a definition. If beauty exists, what can you say about the subject? That's the first S, in relation to itself. Not how it functions. What can you just say about beauty itself? That's why we need to read Plato. But also, what if it doesn't exist? What would you say about it? Self in relation to itself, or its definition. You might say it's just an opinion. You might say, well, I've been reading the symposium, and if beauty exists, what can we say about it itself? It is eternal. Now, I'm just going to give one for each. It's your job to fill out these terms as you read. That's the method. You're developing your own dialectic, your understanding. Now, the next category is, hey, this thing you've defined, you've started with the subject, beauty, you've defined it. Now, this definition rolls over to the next category. There's a flow. This thing you've just defined, how does it relate to other, self to other? How does it relate to other or demonstrate or function? That's demonstration. So you could say, how does beauty relate to our souls? And you can pick. You can have 10 different dialectics, because you can say, how does beauty relate to justice? How does beauty relate to souls? How does beauty relate to being? It's up to you. Right, it gives value to stuff. So how does beauty relate to our souls? How does beauty relate to our souls? I don't know, maybe it inspires? I'm not sure. Okay, so and the other category, if it doesn't exist, it's just an opinion. How does that opinion function to our souls? Maybe it tricks us. It makes us seek beautiful things that aren't real. Okay, now we have been affected by beauty. Now this rolls on to the next category. Having been affected by beauty, how do we relate to others? How does a philosopher, having experienced beauty itself, then relate to other people? Maybe we can say we use beauty in a dialectic with our friends. And over here, if it doesn't exist, it's just an opinion that tricks people. How do those people who've been tricked relate to other people? That's division. Maybe they use beauty to sell products in capitalism, to trick other people to earn money. There is no truth in eternity that inspires us to... right, so over here we could say beauty inspires us to reach nous, or the direct experience of reality or God or the divine. That's what nous means. Where here, it doesn't inspire us to do that. It just tricks us. And then we can trick other people and make money. And our final category is, from those others, from all of these things, can you synthesize it together? Can you find something in common? There are two parts to the conclusion stage: synthesis. So after having gone through this dialectic, can you create a unity? Can you bring it all together? Is there something very important or common? What's our synthesis? Well, we dialectic with friends. Synthesis is, it's the focus for relationships through our dialectic. Over here, sell products using tricking people for the opinion of what looks beautiful. You are conning people, grifting. Okay, so after you've synthesized the previous step, you analyze it, which means you bring it back to the top. Therefore, you have a new definition. Beauty is not only eternal, it's eternal and the focus of all good relationships. Now you started with one definition of beauty, it's eternal. Now you have a new definition, it's eternal and the focus of all good relationships. You've learned something. You've gained a better understanding. Not only that, you've been imagining what beauty is this whole time. You've been imagining it with an open mind, using your highest vision that you've got from reading Plato, using the highest form of understanding, dialectic, and you genuinely want to experience it. These are all formally the conditions for meditation. You have been doing meditation in the highest kind of way. All other yogas or spiritual methods take bits and pieces of this and they build their tradition around it. They might say, okay, you want to have an open mind. I'm going to give you a fake question to wonder about. What is the sound of one hand clapping? That's a koan. Okay, you need to be focused on this single object. Okay, I'll give you a mantra, a repeated prayer or phrase to repeat. So all other spiritual traditions are just bits and pieces of this. But not only have you gained an understanding of what beauty is, you also gain an awareness of what beauty isn't, because you can take this back to the start. That's the analysis. It's a conning people or grifting. Therefore, your new understanding of what beauty isn't is it's not an opinion of people who don't think that beauty exists. It's an opinion used to con people. So if you ever come across somebody in capitalism who tries to trick you using pretty images of women, let's say, to sell Coca-Cola, you know that they are not a philosopher. They are trying to manipulate your opinion to con you. Now, what's really interesting is this side here is what we aim to address in philosophical midwifery. That's the series we're in today. That's this book. Why? When we were very young, our parents or parental figures created scenes for us that appeared to be beauty, appeared to be true, appeared to be caring and loving. They appeared beautiful, but it was a con. They created a situation when we were young, before we had the logos, before we had the dialectic. They created scenes where we would come to our own conclusion. We came to a conclusion to make sense of how they were functioning towards us based on the belief that they were beautiful and caring, because we were very young and we thought our survival would be based upon it. We don't know that we come to the conclusion. So while this is the logos, the dialectic or understanding that takes us to truth, this is the pathologos, you could say, if we get it from our parents, from our childhood, from our upbringing. Now, we don't know what our pathologos is. We have to learn to use the dialectic to surface our false opinions that have been used to trick us, to sell us in a way of being based on our family, culture, society. That is an entire con and causes our problems over and over again. In the chat, what about manipulating by using a limited synthesis to reach a predetermined conclusion? Well, you'd only be manipulating yourself. Why would you want to do that? Now, if you find yourself conning yourself, then you go, uh-oh, I am being influenced by something that is limiting my ability to gain true understanding and reach the experience of reality and know myself. My highest goals are being limited by something that is manipulating or conning me. Where does the con lie? That's your pathologos. Now, that's important that you recognize it. And if you have friends like this Discord community that we have on the channel, they can ask you questions that can help you surface where you are conning or manipulating or blocking your own development of the logos to reach truth and being. Why? Because that's gold. Just as we read Plato and Socrates to get the material for this, We need to be seeking this to surface our blocks, to give us the material for this. We need to be pursuing our highest, most personally meaningful goals to surface our blocks, our negative self-talk, our internal con artist that we can apply to philosophical midwifery. And what's the most important, significant goal anyone can pursue? This. Philosophy. The dialectic applied to being in the self. And what isn't true? Midwifery is also the most important, significant thing you can do. So as you learn, as we read in this channel, you are going to be doing two things. You're going to be learning what is true about philosophical midwifery, and at the same time, you'll be surfacing your blocks, the states of mind, the words that stop you from learning about philosophical midwifery, mastering philosophical midwifery, applying philosophical midwifery to become free of your problems. That's what we're doing here. Finished. So, hi Des, welcome. Phaedo, Phaedrus, Symposium, and still working on the Parmenides. Are you reading the Balboa translations? And I can see most of my dreams, there is still a block. So this is another way we can surface our blocks. Our dreams will give you tips. Your dreams are your guide. But now I see it's there. Good for you. I think when I was young, I wanted to join the army. Okay. Have to go. Super tired. Bye. Well, okay. Have pleasant dreams. I hope there is some wonder and curiosity about this conversation in your dreams tonight, Maximus. I hope you record them as soon as you wake up. Right. Army symbols keep showing up in my dreams. Interesting. So you might be able to use those symbols in your dreams. Now that's the dramatic content. Or actually use the drama in your dreams. What happens in the story? That's dramatic content. Now, last time we were reading about how there is, in the early scenes, there is, let's bring up the pen. This guy here. And the colors. Okay. So here. Where's my colors? There we go. So in our early scenes, we had action, dramatic content, action. So too in your dreams, there is going to be action and dramatic content. There is a story playing out. There is intellectual content or logos in the early scenes, but also in your dreams. And there are states of mind that come up in your dreams too. How did you feel during the action? How did you feel when certain things were said or not said? Now, the difference between using everyday problems to surface the content that we can use to map our way back to where we first learned the pathologos, and dreams also have metaphor. You don't only just have the drama like your everyday life and the words that come up internally and externally in your everyday life and the states of mind that you're in, but in your dreams, you also have a dragon wearing an army uniform, smoking a cigarette. You don't get that sort of stuff in your everyday world. That's one of the significance of one of the additional benefits about you doing philosophical midwifery through dreams, because each of those serve as a metaphor or a symbol to represent something personally meaningful to you that will help you trace the state of mind back through your past to its origin scene. So you talked about having dream with army symbolism. Maybe that is something that reminds you of an early childhood scene. Or maybe you can take it one step further and say, drop the particulars. Don't talk about army anymore, but talk about what it means to you. How do you feel? What images come to mind? Because then you might not only learn about an early scene, it might take you back even further. Now, all of this you can say is the division stage. You have a division or many instances of the problem playing itself out through your life. And if you do a dialectic on that, you want to get to the earliest scene, that synthesis. Synthesis can be a way of finding something common in each division, or it might be finding something causal or something earliest or primary. Now, in philosophical midwifery, the origin scene is earliest and primary and causal. So when we go through division to synthesis, you've seen the state of mind play out over and over and over and over and over. A good step for synthesis is to find the earliest instance you can come up with. And what happens after you do synthesis? Well, what's after synthesis? After synthesis is, let's delete these notes. Okay, after synthesis is analysis. Analysis means you take that synthesis and you add it to your previous definition. This is the ousia nature. So if what you started with was a definition of a blocked state of mind that demonstrated itself in the drama of your dream, that you use the metaphors of whatever metaphors came up in your dream to go through the divisions through your life. Maybe there was a childhood scene where you wanted to join the army. That's an early scene. But maybe you drop the specifics of army to find what it means to you. What does army mean to you? How do you feel about army? What does it represent? That's looking at it as an analogy or a metaphor. That's dropping the specifics and going to the meaning. That might help you unlock the earliest division. That's what we want for our synthesis. So that earliest expression of that negative state of mind that you've defined, it was, when I was younger, said it was only good at peacetime. All right, okay. So it's for you, army represents something that's meaningless unless it's at peace. So it's something that can't be useful when you're in conflict. Just reading through the chat. Yep, cool. Honor loving, yep. So that's a way of helping you find the earliest division. That's most causal. There's your synthesis. So now you've got a definition. So the next thing is take that synthesis, add it to the definition. You've got a state of mind that you've defined as a problem, and you understand it has an origin scene early. In this early scene that your dream has helped you uncover. So what? Well, we were just talking about after you go back to the start, you have a new definition. So we talked about our study of philosophy being every day we do a dialectic on the same topics, on beauty. Why? You have a definition and then you talk about how it functions and you see the different divisions. After going through all that, you have a new conclusion. Now you have a new definition of beauty. You have a deeper understanding, which means you have material to do another dialectic. Every day you are refining your understanding of being, of beauty, of justice. You're cycling up and up and up. If you are in the game of philosophy, the game that we all should be in, you are a living dialectic on being, reality, and self. Because you are through successive instances of the dialectic, you are gaining a deeper understanding, you are getting more clarity, and in your life, you might have instances to experience beauty, to test your understanding, to test the dialectic with your friends. Which is exactly what we were reading about the pathologos. Okay? The successive instances in our life of the pathologos, what we're doing when we're not doing philosophy, is the development of the pathologos, and through these instances, our pathologos gains more precision and clarity. These are successive refinements of the pathologos expressing itself throughout the structure of our false beliefs. This is the development of our pathologos. So the very thing that we talked about, the development, the successive instances of the dialectic on being in philosophy, that's why we read Philosophy every day, if we can. We talk about it all the time. We are doing the exact same thing our pathologos is doing if we're not in the game of midwifery. Successive refinements, development, gaining more precision and clarity, the same thing that we aim to do about what's true in the game of philosophy. Same relationships, different terms. That's the principle of analogy. That's a fundamental principle called likeness, a fundamental principle of reality. Terms may vary, relations stay the same. So what? So everyone, therefore, should be in the game of philosophical midwifery, because whether you like it or not, your life is a living, walking, breathing dialectic on your problem. Therefore, every morning we should be looking at our dreams to, gain more precision and clarity on not the pathologos, but our understanding of the pathologos. There's our choice. Do you want to be refining your problem? And by the way, if you see people who don't do midwifery, as they grow older, you'll see their pathologos expressed in the lines in their face, physical illnesses, the way they talk, the way they carry themselves. And as they grow up, they get more and more entrenched in their own pathologos. They get more and more sick, and a pathologos even expresses itself in physical ailments and cancer. What do you know? So your choice, if you're watching this video, this is your call to adventure.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Which is a term from the man that we read earlier in this book, Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. He recognized that in every hero's journey, there is a call to adventure. Someone who goes into your normal world, your normal way of being. So for Harry Potter, goes into his step-parents' house and he invites you into a new world. Harry Potter, come to Hogwarts. Luke Skywalker, come to space. Katniss, come to the Hunger Games. There's always that call. Frodo, come on a quest to find the One Ring or destroy it. It's a universal part. This is your call to adventure. And what is it? Well, whether you know it or not, you are in a life that is nothing other than a dialectic that is gaining precision and clarity through successive refinements of your pathologos. This is the development of your pathologos, your problem. Your call to adventure is you could either do that, which keeps you chained to what they call fate, the predictable, repeating cycles. This is from what we read. We can anticipate, so it's predictable, cyclical nature, playing itself out repeatedly, your problems, various degree of intensity, ups and downs, that ends up through these successive refinements, shapes the basic image of yourself, your mask, your persona, the lines on your face, the way of treating yourself and others, the characteristic way of relating to ourselves and world, creates counterattacks. So the more you get into your problem, the more difficult it is to get out of it, because the more it gains power to undermine your conclusions that you reach. That's your counterattacks. This is what life is for every human being on this planet. Now, here is your call to adventure. Hero.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You could either do that, or what you could be doing every day, every moment of your life is not developing precision and clarity through successive refinements of your false image of self, your problem. You could be developing clarity and precision through successive refinements of your understanding of the pathologos through philosophical midwifery. One chains you to fate, problems, negative states of mind, failure. One develops your understanding, allows you to resolve your problems, grants you with freedom, a special kind of freedom from the pathologos blocks, distractions, sucking away of energy, frees you from passing on the sickness to other people, gives you the space, energy, intelligence, power to reach your most personally significant goals. So in other words, escape fate, reach your destiny. Specifically through using that same dialectic you've been developing an understanding of, applied to philosophy, applied to not the false image of the self, not the false image of the self, but the true self that's beyond images. That's your call to adventure. You have a choice. Record your dreams every morning. Talk about it with your friends and your loved ones. Get yourself a partner, says Dr. Pierre Grimes. Get yourself a partner who is interested in understanding. His last interview, I think, one of his last interviews, he passed away this year, sadly, but he had some interviews this year. And one of them, he mentioned his relationship with his wife, Nancy, and how they would reflect on their dreams every morning. And she was his best midwife, philosophical midwife. And he said in that interview, get yourself a partner who loves understanding. And also, an added benefit if she has a good heart. Why? So you can take this quest. Refine your understanding, not your pathologos. That's what we read last time. Pretty cool. Let's check in with the chat. Okay, I talked with my dad after watching a midwife session. Wow. And realized he never praised any of his kids at all, and it turns out his father never did too. There you go. There's the passing on of the tradition. My mother never praised academic stuff, but like Highlander and Buffy, but not scientists. So honor loving. Ah, right. So there's that soul that seeks honor, but not reason. My dad, when I was younger, said it was only good at peacetime. Right, that's his idea of army. And I get diatemia now and getting stuck on beautiful bodies, need to go higher. Right, so good. So you're in the symposium. I emphasize with Alcibiades at the end of the symposium for some reason. I find him cute. Well, apparently so did Socrates. And I know the feeling he describes. We live dialectically. I liked Highlander better than Harry Potter. I can't remember Highlander very much. There can be only one. And then the Highlander chops off Harry's head. Oh no. I'm starting to pick up my cycle and mind state. Fantastic. So you're in the game. You're on the quest. And oh, I know the counter attacks are constant now. Well, that is one of the things we're going to be reading in this chapter about counterattacks. Actually, we read it here. Further, surfacing the pathologos, understanding how it's maintained and understanding how it's resolved must include learning the nature of the counterattack against its removal. One of the key functions of the pathologos is its power to undermine the conclusions that are reached in those midwifery sessions. The conclusions are doubted. There's the role of doubt. The method is challenged. This philosophical midwifery stuff is nonsense. And all manner of doubt and disbelief flood the mind of the subject. Each of these must be examined because they fit together into what we call the defense of the pathologos, which is experienced by the subject as a kind of loyalty to their basic old beliefs. Loyalty. Or as an attack against their newly won way of understanding. You've got a new way of understanding and it's being attacked. In a later section, we will discuss it in more detail. The structure of the counterattack, provide examples, and discuss how it relates to supporting themes. Now, as we just talked about, there are two parts of the dialectic. What it is and what it isn't, which means something else. Everything we learn in philosophical midwifery, not only can we gain an understanding about midwifery, understanding about our pathologos, use it to free ourselves from our pathologos, but there's something else we can do. Every time we come across something cool in midwifery, we can ask the question, how does this also apply to philosophy? In other words, if our pathologos is doing something, how does the logos do the same thing, but the good version? Because the pathologos is the shadow of the logos. Same relationships, different terms. So what would happen if we took out the crappy terms, the pathologos, the false image of self and reality, and we put in the actual logos, the truth about self and reality? So that's cool. You can do that if you're watching along. Let's do it right now as an example. And by the way, it's for you to do. Like, I don't want to take away the fun games that you can play. So there's a defense of the pathologos, which means as we learn about the logos and as we gain a direct experience of reality, our job in philosophy should be to use the logos to defend the logos. When we have counterattacks, when our pathologos comes up, can we use our mastery of the dialectic to function as a caring dialectician to ourselves? Why? To defend our newly one way of understanding. When we have a goal, we have to defend it, protect it, nurture it. So if we ever have an experience of being in reality, keep it in your memory. Meditate on it, imagine it, and keep it in mind when you do the dialectic. Because then you'll be, what happened? Then you'll be defending the true vision of reality. There it is. So I don't know if that's the answer, but that's the kind of game you can play. Everything that you see, you can ask this question, which is cool. Hercules and Xena was a favorite. Oh, blessed be Pierre. Yes, blessed be Pierre. Now, if Pierre has completed his work in this plane, and the realm of being is beyond time, then I wonder if we do our work here. Maybe we can meet him on whatever journey he is on currently. That might be fun. Stop judging self by others' definition. I have no duty to their opinions. Well said. Okay, we're replacing duty with, I don't know, what would you say? Understanding? Wonder? Adventuring? Destiny? What would you put in place there? So that's a review of what we were doing last time. We've seen a lot. Let's move into the next section, the condition and the transmission of the pathologos. Right, so that drop that I played was from Sam Cedar. I like him, but he lost me when I did my own reading of the issues. Right, so I had a similar conversation with Mindy about this. The Majority Report with Sam Cedar, I'm a big fan. So is Mindy. I remember talking to her once about it and said, oh, it's frustrating. They never really get to the root cause of the problem. And she said, yeah, they're not philosophers, Like, yeah, I guess. So, yeah, like, they're good at, like, in terms of journalism, they're good at speaking, putting it in context, telling the truth. They have good hearts. They're good people. But of course, without the dialectic in their back pocket, they're never going to address the root cause of the problem, because that's what the dialectic is for. Yeah, Sam's really funny, especially when he's talking to Tim Heidecker or Sam Cedar talking to Tim Heidecker and Sam Cedar talking to the Bob's Burgers guy. What's his name? The guy who plays Archer. Something Benjamin. John H. Benjamin, is that the guy's name? Anyway, really funny. Emma Vigeland is see, 10 years ago we would say Emma Vigeland is bae, but bae is not cool anymore. What would we say now? She's awesome. Emma Vigeland is amazing. My favorite is, I think it's on a Thursday. Yeah, the voice actor. On a Thursday, if you go to their YouTube, and it's just Emma by herself, I think it's a Thursday. Then there's a link to the Fun Half link. And that's my favorite one. Whereas Emma, these other two guys from other podcasts, and the engineer. I forget their names, but that's the best. It's like a perfect. They're like the Ninja Turtles of journalism, you could say. There's Emma. Oh god, I have to look it up now that I'm sat talking about it. All right, so I took a brief pause to find these names. We were talking about a YouTube group that I think is pretty neat if you're looking for something to watch. On a Thursday, there is a Majority Report live stream. And if you go to the notes underneath the YouTube video, you'll see a link to what they call the fun half. And on a Thursday fun half, there is the Ninja Turtle Squad, starring Emma Vigeland, Matt Binder, Brandon, what's Brandon's last name? Brandon Sutton, is it? Yes, Brandon Sutton. And the producer, Matt Leach. That is a dream team of Emma Vigeland, Matt Binder, Brandon Sutton, and Matt Leach. That's a Ninja Turtle dream team of different sorts of people who have a genuine interest in understanding, a genuine interest in doing good, skilled at using evidence and reason, have their own strengths that complement each other in a really cool way. A combination of Matt Binder's light-hearted jovialness, Emma Vigeland's enormous heart, Matt Leach's courage and direct speaking up to the point, and Brandon Sutton's extreme insight and uncanny knack to have fantastic takes and phrase them in a very clear, succinct way. That's really cool. It's cool to see the interplay and how fun it is when they're all together reflecting on something. Now, it doesn't mean that they are philosophers, but because the next step would be taking all of those amazing strengths, character, genuine interest, desire to do good, and applying it to the dialectic, specifically midwifery and philosophy, two things that haven't been in our culture until now. That would be the next step up for them. But considering that's not in the mainstream yet, they are, they're a good source of, if you are interested in reason and understanding and genuine skilled people and a cool team, you can check that out. The Majority Report Thursday Fun Half. And as you're watching, ask yourself, which Ninja Turtle best describes each of them? Now, I couldn't answer that question. I had to think of two. I gave everybody a combination of two Ninja Turtles. And then you can ask, well, if they are the four Ninja Turtles, what character is Sam Cedar? And why is it Krang? No, that's a silly joke. Forget about that. So, I'd forgotten why we were talking about them. Yeah. It was because of the drop that we had, the sound drop we had. Right. So, with that out of the way, the next part of our reading, the condition and transmission of the pathologos. Second, a pathologos has a pervasive influence. So we're learning more about the functioning or the demonstration of what we defined in the first section here. So that review of that was our definition. How does it function? A pervasive influence on one's life can be traced through generations. The pathologos goes through generations, a kind of family curse, so to speak, if you were to represent it with mythology. It's carried through successive generations because it is an imitated ideal. Wow. No, not hooray.
Wow. Wow.
We didn't learn it. Oh, so that's why we were talking about it, I guess. That crew from the Majority Report is a good example of people who use evidence and reason to reflect as best they can on the causes of the events in our world. We didn't learn the pathologos that way. We learnt it through imitation. It is an imitated ideal. This is key. To understand the conditions for such imitation, we must learn how it was learned in our youth. Learned, not taught. And how it is passed from generation to generation. Okay, the conditions for imitation. How do we learn it? How do we pass it on? This is key. We need to free ourselves from this infection, this cancer. This contagious cancer. There are, of course, different ways of learning different things. Okay? We learn a language in a different way that we learn to ride a bicycle. Right? You learn to ride a bicycle with somebody running along next to you, keeping your balance, and then he lets go and then you pedal. You learn, if you want to learn Japanese, you don't do it the same way. You don't jump on the back of a Japanese man and have someone running along next to you, making sure you don't fall off him as he runs along, tries to get you off his back. That's not how you learn Japanese. Different. To learn the pathologos requires that we become convinced, again, convinced, no reason and evidence, about the truth. Okay, key word here, truth. Now, as we were saying earlier, everything we learn in midwifery, we have to ask, we will ask ourselves, what's the equivalent in reality? So, is philosophy concerned with the truth? And can our understanding of how the truth affects us in philosophy shed light on how we become convinced of an imitated ideal in the pathologos origin? Lots of fun. I wish my dad was like Sam with his son. Oh, I don't know much about Sam and his son. I thought his name is liked Destiny's Camp with most things. I don't know much about the streamer Destiny. He's like a right-wing guy, right? Is he a grifter? Is he one of those guys that sides with Andrew Tate? I don't know about him. But it sounds like Sam's got a good relationship with his son. That's pretty sweet. What's Vosh mean? So, we have, okay, so we have to learn the pathologos requires we become convinced about the truth of some belief. Again, so we become convinced about the truth of a belief. What's the equivalent of philosophy? We become something about the truth of what? Well, it ain't belief. Oh, Destiny hates State. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know who Destiny is. However, any belief, not however any belief, okay? This isn't about any belief, like who's your favorite sports team, but a fundamental belief about our own worthiness and the integrity of our reality. Okay, so there's two things. There's our self and reality. The fundamental pathologos belief is to do with the worthiness of yourself. Whoops. Are you worthy? Are you good enough? Can you do it? Should people like you? Are you a sinner? Are you evil? Are you not good enough? Are you crap? Are you unlovable? Whatever it is. The worthiness of yourself. And what's the equivalent for reality? The integrity of reality. Is there integrity? Is reality understandable? Is it knowable? Both of those two words together, intelligible. Or is reality crap? Stupid, dumb. By the way, is reality also caring? Or is it cold and indifferent? Or is it evil? What level of integrity does reality have? Of course, understanding self and reality, formally, that's the subject of true philosophy, which is the other thing we do on this channel. Good for us. Now you got to ask ourselves, hang on a second, if we have learned a fundamental false belief about self and reality through generations, how many of them were Platonic philosophers? Reading the Balboa translation. If being a Platonic philosopher reading the Balboa translation is literally the study of the truth about self and reality, then I'd bet a nickel that those people you learnt about reality from weren't doing it. We've literally only had the translation for like 10 years, so sorry to burst anyone's bubble. No, I'm not sorry. It's important that we burst bubbles of ignorance. How did we learn it then? If they weren't actually enlightened, wise, understanding philosophers who knew about the self and reality like Socrates? Good question. The acceptance of a pathologos means we have been convinced by someone that we are ignorant. Someone got us to give up what we are knowing. For what? Now, before even reading on, I'm guessing they want to undermine us so they can pass on their bullshit beliefs. Let's see. We are ignorant about our very being and deluded about what we have regarded as real. And that, oh, here we go. And that instead we are dum-dums about what's real and our own being. They really know us and reality because they are masters of Platonic philosophy in the Balboa translation. Oh no, they were just wanting to pretend. Like one of my parents would say, I know you better than you know yourself. Bullshit. That's trying to convince me that I'm ignorant. Parents like to pretend that game. Wonder why. I wonder who they're imitating when they pretend to know us better than we know ourselves, our own being, and what we regard as real. Especially considering how wrong they are. They really know us and the reality that confronts us better than we know ourselves. And we would say to that,
flibbity-gibbity nonsense.
Flibbity jibbity nonsense. Someone, I wonder who. Where's my purple? Purple. Someone must have appeared very convincing. And that can only have occurred if someone appeared as a knower. What we're talking about. What do you get true knowing from? Platonic philosophy and the Balboa tradition, along with doing midwifery to address and remove and resolve the inevitable blocks that will come up as you go through that process of mastering Socratic philosophy. I say Socratic because Socrates was a midwife. There's lots of evidence of that in the texts and other references from other people about Socrates. But Plato wasn't. Good reason. Socrates was murdered for doing this while Plato was still young. And as we're seeing, the development of an understanding of our pathologos is something that happens over time with many dialectics, many conversations. Find yourself a partner who can do both, as they say, do both philosophy and midwifery. So if Socrates was only in his mid-20s when Plato was only in his mid-20s when Socrates was murdered by people who thought they knew reality and could murder those who disagreed with them, then we can understand why Plato didn't develop a firm grasp of midwifery to the point where he could write about it. Now, some people could make the argument that he might have recognized it and points to it through clues in his text. The Republic has many clues indicating the necessity for midwifery, while not actually describing it in detail the way we are here. So that could be something to explore when we get into the Republic. Nevertheless, we can call this Socratic. So, were your parents masters of Socrates and midwifery? Then how do they appear like such a knower? Well, they did so with such skill that the appearance itself became idealized. So what would be the actual equivalent? What's Socrates doing in our reading? He has a mastery of the Logos and Dialectic. We idolize that. Truth, reason, evidence, experience, dianoia, nous, soul, self. These are the things that we idolize and try to match Socrates on. Our imitated loved ones had none of that. When passing on our fundamental false belief about our own worthiness and the integrity of our reality. So what are we idolizing then, if not the Logos and the Dialectic? The appearance itself. That's what it means to be knowing. That way of being. Like some cultures, they have like a little neck shake. That means you're smart. That means you know. And you see their little babies, have like a 5-year-old, and that you can see them practicing it. I was at work one day, and the boss's daughter was there, and she was telling some employee what to do, and she had the same neck shake that her mum did. And I smiled, and she knew that she'd been caught imitating. Because that's what it means to be knowing. Right? Wrong. That's what we idolize as what it means to be knowing. Doesn't everyone want to be knowing? Yep. How many people are in Socrates? How many people are in midwifery? But if everyone wants to be knowing, and that's the method, the dialectic applied to both, what are we doing as a species? What the heck kind of game are we playing, really? And is it time that we wake up and start to play the game that we're in anyway, but play it right? I think so.
Wow. That one. Wow.
Have you read Brand at all? Have you read Brand at all? Have you?
I don't know. I didn't have a sound drop for that. Okay, the appearance itself becomes idolized, and through that drama, the message was believed. The drama must have appeared really truthful in some way, real in some way. The idolized image in the drama becomes the object. Different color. Let's go here. Green. The idolized image. Oh, that's a dirty. That's right. Do I have a better? Yeah. Idolized image in the drama becomes an object to be imitated and the standard for what will be judged as knowing. So, knowledge is power. That sounds dumb. Power without ethic is tyranny. Knowledge isn't power in philosophy. Knowledge in the terms of nous is the verification of our understanding developed through dialectic. The verification being a direct experience of reality, seeing for ourselves the integrity of reality by experiencing it directly in the realm of being. That's formally nous, what is translated in non-Balboa translations as knowledge. That ideal is used, we keep our eye on when doing a dialectic. Its imitation, the imitation of knowledge, seems to be what we're seeing here. The false image of what we see directly through philosophy, that we don't get through the logos or dialectic. So all we know about it is the image expressed in the drama. So if you're from a loud Italian family, maybe your idea of what it means to be knowing is being the loudest Italian speaking person, lots of loudness, and say this is what it means to be knowing. Whereas in a Japanese family, to be knowing is to use even less words than other people. You have a solemn way of speaking. And maybe your role in the drama is to not address the things you should. Whereas in another family, addressing things too much. I don't know. The point is, it's not true nous. Direct experience of true being and truth. That is a proof and verification of your understanding through the dialectic. Okay? So that, therefore, if we all seek to be knowing, but we're not in midwifery and philosophy, wouldn't it follow that our whole lives would be trying to create the conditions where we have a kind of drama that will allow us a role where we can shake our fists and play that same state of mind where we convince someone that they're not worthy and reality isn't worthy because that's what it means to be knowing? If that's the case, then our whole life is playing out the stages, thumbs up, at some level of the stages of creating the conditions and then playing out a drama we are seeking whether we like it or not, so that we can play that role we are imitating. Our whole life is like a train on a train tracks heading for that brick wall, repeating this drama that we got our image of what it means to be knowing. Fate. Why? Well, how else do you get knowing? You need that drama so you can play that role and appear that way. creating the conditions for another person to believe the same sense of unworthiness about themselves, to create the conditions for them to come to a conclusion of the same lack of integrity of reality. They need to learn the way the world is. How else can you be knowing? There is no other way. Unless, of course, you have the logos and dialectic, in which case there's philosophy and midwifery. Other than that, this is where we're headed. Therefore, if everyone is on that tragic train tracks to that inevitable conclusion, we can say, well, wouldn't it be rational and good and caring to create the conditions for midwifery for all of us? All right, get yourself a girl that can do both. Understanding with a good heart. But this requires an explanation. Consider. That's a quote from Socrates, by the way. Not Socrates, from Pierre Grimes. When he was talking about the need, the benefit of having a partner who you can do this, the true midwifery with. Otherwise, you will inevitably be looking for a partner that can create the conditions for that kind of negative drama so you can play the role of crushing them in the same way you were crushed. And then you take turns, and then later on, there'll be a similar drama where they can play the role. And by the way, you're not from the same family. Therefore, there's the conflict. Whose pathologos gets to reign supreme? Yours or hers? That's the conflict. Now, the fact that you're together means that there are some enough similarity for you to play out that role, because that's the train tracks we're on. What's the alternative? Logos, midwifery. So that's the reasoning behind Pierre Grimes saying, get yourself a partner where you can play that game. Therefore, it's not a conflict over whose personal pathologos you're seeking. You are both together seeking a shared ideal. The good, the logos. So really, there are three, in an ideal relationship, there are three members. You, her, and the ideal you're both seeking, which makes you a lovely butthead. Triad. There's a you, there's a her, and there's an ideal that you both are seeking together. There's your triad. The two bottom terms seeking the hyparxis or the fullest flowering. So, good thing we know about triads. And here's a bunch of triads together. Cool. Girls are, in the chat, girls are hot, but boys are more fun. Ugh. You look for a partner who looks the most like your parents' pathologos, as that is what you think loves look like. Well said. So just reading that again. You look for a partner that looks most like your parents' pathologos, as that is what you think love looks like. Good point. So yeah. So there's the love, which would be the expression of the action in the drama. How do we relate to people if that's our model of loving? And then you got the appearance of beauty. How beautiful did they look when they were doing that thing? So we can make rational our the cause of our conflicts within relationships. Like those who are spanked or hit, they grow to learn that is what love is. So they get a partner that does the same and they stay with them. Yup. But of course, no two are exactly the same, resulting in a kind of tug of war. Consider the transmission of a belief from one person to another requires a special, perhaps unique, kind of situation. There are several factors that must be brought together before the transmission of the pathologos can take place. And we must review them first. Let me just see how far this... Okay, this is a bit of a long section. This is a really long section. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, we're going to be so wise at the end of this section. Wow, the end is right here. It's page 32. And we are on page... Oh, we're going to be so wise by the end of this section. You don't even know. We're on page 22, so it's 10 pages. Okay, so maybe we might speed up a little bit in the next one. Let's see how we go. And we must review them first. For it is curious that our own youthful openness, number one, and receptivity was the condition for the transmission of the pathologos, then the event or stage upon which the drama unfolded is another. So the event or stage upon which the drama unfolded could only be convincing if we were the object of the lesson. So we were the object of the lesson, youthful openness and receptivity. Okay. The only person in the audience. Okay, only person in the audience. Those acting out their roles had to convince us that they really knew us, and so those acting out their roles, their roles had to convince us that they really knew us and our reality. That's a big one. All of this would fail if it did not include the idea that it was done for our benefit. Okay, let's give them all the same color so we have them all together. Youthfulness and receptivity. The object of the lesson. Only person in the audience. So they're talking to us directly. Especially, we are special. They had to convince us that they really knew us and our reality. It had to include the idea that it was all done for our benefit. When these things come together, the entire presentation becomes an ideal that we model and so imitate. For all the drama we simply do not know. For all the drama, all that drama. Oh, right. Funny. For all the drama, we simply do not know what it is we must believe, since we are left to conclude for ourselves. Interesting. We do not know what we must believe. So for all that crap going on, intelligible crap, understandable crap, well-orchestrated crap, passed on, it's a dharma successorship, a spiritual lineage passed on, full of crap, but still crap. We do not know what we must believe, since we are left to conclude for ourselves. Now, we must see how each of these elements produce the pathologos and why it is so difficult to free oneself. Why so difficult? So how each of them produce and why it's so difficult to free oneself from the influences of the pathologos. Before a situation can have this effect upon us, these factors must be present. Okay? So, we've actually done a lot. We've done a lot of reviewing today. We've talked about how based Emma Vigeland and the Majority Report is, as a bit of a tangent. And we've started to look at the conditions for the transmission of the pathologos. We've got a bit of an overview. But now we have to see how each of the elements produce the pathologos and why it's so difficult to free ourselves. Now, next time, let's see if we can breeze through this a little bit quicker. There's a lot here. I'm realizing I'm highlighting almost every second word, but it's worth reviewing in this detail because of how important it is. And it's the best game in town. So, on that note, looking forward to seeing how all these elements produce a pathologos. If this is the most significant force in our life, guiding our relationship, guiding our idea of love, guiding our entire life journey, if all of our lives is nothing other than a walking dialectic, a living, breathing dialectic on this, that's negative and tragic, then we better understand it as well as we can to free ourselves from it. We better learn how all these elements we've just identified, our youthful openness and receptivity, number one, being the object of the lesson, the only person in the audience, number two, being convinced that they knew our reality, number three, and that it was all done for our benefit. How do these come together to produce the pathologos? Oh, and also I say maybe 5 from this conclude for ourselves. How these 5 elements produce the pathologos. Now, I think using our understanding to project it onto a larger political framework is important because we are within a system. So long as it's genuine, if you're baiting or if you're actually genuinely interested in understanding how we can apply this understanding to better help our world, better solve our human problems, I think that's important as well. So I don't think our political reflection was a tangent, so to speak, but it's not our primary goal here. Our development is not contingent upon our family members coming along. It's almost guaranteed they won't. At least from my experience in midwifery over the last 20 years. We don't require society to come along. Thumbs up for that. Why? Because we concluded for ourselves. So we have the power to free ourselves from it. But we need to know how it's created and why it's so difficult to do that freeing from these influences. Why is it so gosh darn difficult? Why is this pathologos called the most powerful force in our universe? More powerful even than enlightenment experiences. The experience of true reality might have the effect of lessening the power for a period of time of the pathologos, but it's still there, and give it time, it's going to come back in force. Counterattack. So, if this is what we're doing, this is the game we're in. We're born into this video game. We're playing it anyway. Very important. Worth the reflection. And worth understanding why it's so difficult to free ourselves from it and how we can do that. So, on that cliffhanger, I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, like, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, join the Discord if you want to join the dialogue there and get notifications when we go live. Support on Patreon. If there's a donation page, please give me lots of money. I'm just kidding, but any support for the channel is greatly appreciated. If you think this work is worth maintaining and nurturing, keeping alive, and suggest it to your friends if you think that they might be interested in it. So on that note, thank you for joining me in chat. Some good questions and reflection today. That was a lot of fun. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me.